I know it. There it is. Oh man, what an exciting countdown, right? I hope the wait was worth it. Welcome everybody to the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour. We tried to build a little intrigue there, a new feature on our little streaming service here, but thank you all for joining. We've seen the comments. You guys are awesome already. I'm Nick, of course, here with my colleague Larry. Larry, how are you doing tonight?
I am great, and I hope you are all as well. It's another good week. Seeing you now 3 weeks in a row for these broadcasts. Well, it's gonna be 3 weeks, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, and it's just lovely to see such a good crowd. And of course, we have Ed here joining us, who is here to drop knowledge. Ed, how's things with you?
Going on, everybody? Doing grand over here in upstate New York. The cool weather is hitting.
There you go. I feel it too. A little chill in the bones today. And of course, Gary, our president, is joining us in the bottom right corner there. Gary, how are you?
I am living the dream. So happy to be with everybody here. And it's 2 weeks in a row. We were in where were we? It's all of
Dallas.
Dallas. We were in Dallas for a really fun in-person event at Nebraska Furniture Mart. That was really awesome. More than 300 people, right? And now we're here together in a pure virtual happy hour with our friend Ed.
Yeah, and I know there was a little bit of a different format last time, so there was a learning curve that Larry and I eventually got around to, but we loved seeing all the people commenting and asking questions and giving us props for the tour there, and frankly, I think Nebraska Furniture Mart really rolled out the red carpet for us, so props to them for taking good care and putting on such an awesome show with us. So it looks like the next happy hour we'll do will also be a remote from another dealer, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So anyone who may be joining us for the very first time, we are going to do 4 giveaways throughout the evening and also have a special guest, which I'll get to in a second. But Larry, do we know what the giveaways are off the top?
Well, I do. I don't know about everybody else, but I will share. So we have 4 as usual. We're giving away a pair of Prime Bookshelves to start the evening, then an SB-1000 Pro Subwoofer, followed up by a PB-1000 Pro Subwoofer, and then a pair of Prime Towers. So we've got some great giveaways for you all tonight, and we'll be shipping those out to whoever.
How do they win? We forgot to tell them the last one. We got to remember that.
All you got to do to win, leave a comment, ask a question. 1 comment, 1 question makes you just as eligible as if you ask 20 questions. So that's all it takes. Everyone's got an even shot here. We choose at random, and we'll be announcing the giveaways live. Get your information and ship those products out within the next day or two. So that's it. If you're leaving comments right now, then you're eligible. And I've already seen a lot of comments about our special guest tonight. I think there's a lot of excitement to welcome the Youthman to the broadcast. So we'll get him out here in a few minutes. But a lot of home theater knowledge that Youthman shares on his YouTube channel and his Facebook group. So looking forward to picking his brain and getting some information out of him, because I know he's going to be a great guest. And frankly, he did a live stream for an hour and a half already today. So he's warmed up and ready to go. And just excited to talk to him. But we're going to follow tradition. We didn't get a chance to do it last week, and I know there's been some great content out there recently. And Larry, you were teasing some of it before we jumped on here. So I'll start with you. What have you been into?
Well, last week we traveled, so I took the opportunity while I was on the plane and in the hotel to catch up and watch Cobra Kai, the end of season 4 and all of season 5. And I would say season 5, they finally hit it. Most of the time, I didn't care about any of the characters in the previous seasons, but season 5, man, they got the heart and soul of Karate Kid in there.
You think they hit their stride in season 5?
I do, man. Season 4 was hard to watch. Sorry, I'm adjusting my camera here a bit. Season 4 is hard to watch because those kids got a little whiny at the beginning.
We watched it too. I mean, I think season 5 to me was a little bit uneven. A few episodes
all over the place
left me a little bit cold, but I think that they pulled it off in the end, and it was solid. So yeah. I mean, that's my contribution, Nick. We also just finished streaming Cobra Kai recently, and it did wrap up strong. I got to give them that.
It was really solid, and they just released Andor, the new Star Wars series, on Disney Plus. And between trainings and PowerPoints and eating lunch, I watched it over the last 2 days. And man, I would say that may be the best thing they've done in years in the Star Wars universe. So
without any spoilers, Larry, it's a little bit different than I think Mandalorian and some of the other ones. How would you frame it up in terms of why it maybe not be exactly like some of the other series we've seen from the Star Wars?
It's kind of in the vein of I don't know. I guess it would be it's a continuation or the beginning of the movie Rogue One, and you get to see essentially how the rebels kind of come to be, and it is very character driven, which is really cool. But man, that third episode, I'm not going to spoil anything, but phenomenal sound, a really fun episode.
Good teaser there. I have not started it yet, but I absolutely will here in the next couple of days. Ed, I know you've been had some time here to tune in. What do you got?
Well, like I said, we just finished streaming Cobra Kai. There's I was just going through Amazon Prime and Netflix last night and added a bunch of shows to the queue, but we haven't really drilled into anything yet.
Okay. Gary, you got always some deep tracks for us. What do you got?
Well, it's been too much travel for me to tell you some new music I've discovered, so I got to disappoint people. But I do have a show that nobody's mentioned, and I know it's not a small-time show. It's a big-time, PR machine behind it. But on Prime, this Hobbit prequel show is really good, I say. And it's not even my style enough. It's phenomenal. It's really well produced. It's really layered with lots of characters and interesting stories. And the acting is great. The effects are great. And I'm going to say it's so far way more interesting than the new Game of Thrones prequel. For me, anyway. I find that one kind of disappointing. So I definitely recommend do it on a home theater. In fact, both of those shows, it's a shame to watch that on your phone.
Gary, I haven't drilled into that one yet. Is it like because
the Hobbit one?
Kind of like Star Wars. The most recent movies were actually prequels to the original. So where does it fall in the timeline of the Hobbit?
It's like I think it's like 1,000 years before or something.
Yeah,
so you're not going to have any something like that. But so you're going to have a completely new stories and new characters, but the characters are interesting from the first episode. They're good and it's layered and there's some depth to it. I was actually surprised because I'm not really a Hobbit fan. I don't dislike it. It's not my thing, but it's kept my interest and it's really fun on a home theater.
Man, Lord of the Rings was like a huge deal for me when it came out. We watched them all at the movies. We waited for the extended version on Blu-ray, and then the extended cuts were amazing. So I'm doing it. You convinced me, Gary. That's my next series.
Well, so you report back in the next happy hour. Was it a good recommendation?
Okay.
Well, I will say
the one bad thing is you can't stream the whole thing. They drop an episode every week.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm waiting on. I've been spoiled.
I never liked that.
We're so selfish now. We just want all of it on demand at the second.
We need it now.
I know.
But I will say, I read it's the most expensive TV show of all time in terms of per episode. Something like $35 million per episode. So Bezos shelled out for this series, and it sounds like it's worth it as far as the sound. Gary, I actually like the Game of Thrones series. I have not watched the new Lord of the Rings to be able to compare them, but I've been enjoying at least some of the storylines, and the last episode really heated up a bit. So on all levels. I've
gone through two, to be fair to it, and the first two I wasn't too into, but
yeah, I think it's picking up.
I'm not finding myself caring about anything that's going on, which is usually that's my metric. I need to care. Oh, yeah, I do have another one. I just thought of it. I meant, and I had planned to bring it up. Can I say? Do we have time for one more?
You got all the time you need.
So there's this movie with Sylvester Stallone, and it's called Samaritan.
Oh, that looked good. I saw the trailer on it.
It's completely not my style at all. It's a superhero movie, but Stallone is so interesting. He's got this craggy face, and his delivery is hilarious, and then he's got this banter with this young. I won't ruin it, I promise. Yeah. He's got this banter with this young boy, and I have to say, I loved it. I loved it, and the effects are really, really good. And my wife and I had a date night and watched it. So that's another one I'm going to recommend, and it's also on Prime.
Cool.
Yeah, it was way better than I expected.
I've added that to the queue. It looks solid.
Well, I got one music recommendation. Nobody knew, but Nathaniel Ratcliffe has been playing in my house nonstop. I think my wife just really started getting into his music. He had that big hit like a couple years ago where it was like, I think everyone just remembers where he goes like, "Son of a bitch, I need a drink," and like, you know, it was that song. But his albums are just great, and we've been playing it on stream. So I recommend that.
Song again, Nick?
I tried to sneak it in there really quick so I don't have to swear like really loudly, but I think people know what I'm talking about. And I also finished The Boys. I was telling these guys, and that was one of the best cliffhangers as far as the end of season. I'm not going any deeper than that. Larry, I know you don't like the teasers or the spoilers, so I finally got through it, and you know what? It tugged on some heartstrings. As depraved as it was, Ed, it certainly left an impression on me. I can't wait for the next season to The Boys.
The show's brilliant. It's engaging. The actors bring a lot of depth and complexity. If you can get past the surface and really drill into what they're trying to do with that show, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a ton of comments for Youthman, and I promise we'll bring them out. But let's do a little bit more housekeeping here before we bring them out. We have a giveaway, but Gary, we're going to be on the road next week, and I know it's a trade show, but maybe give a little teaser, since we plan to do a live stream, not a whole happy hour, because it's going to be a very busy time for us. But where are we going to be next week in Dallas?
So this is the CEDIA trade show, CEDIA, and it's the trade show for basically the custom integration world. And you guys know we have Prime Wireless Pro that we launched last week officially at the event at Nebraska Furniture Mart, and we will have that at CEDIA. And we're also going to have a surprise that we're announcing at CEDIA, and we'll probably talk about it after that. It's not something coming right away, and it doesn't have anything to do with any of our existing lineup of products, just in case people are afraid that they're buying something that's going to be replaced. It's not that kind of a thing, but it should be a lot of fun. We've typically, when we did CEDIA, we've usually gotten a nice hotel suite right next to the venue and had a demo, and we took the plunge. We all kind of put our hands in the circle and said, let's do this. We're on the show floor in CEDIA, and so that will be very exciting. And by the way, CEDIA is officially a trade show, and they probably aren't going to like me saying it. It's got to be the easiest trade show for a regular person to get into on the planet. I don't think they care.
I think that's good for their attendee number, so they might love that.
Yeah. So I don't think you'll have a problem if you want. You have to pay to get in, but it's a pretty interesting trade show. It's at that K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center, Larry's hometown of Dallas. And so if you're anywhere near there, I definitely wouldn't just go on a wing or on a whim, I should say, and hope to get in. But if you'll go on their site if you want to go and see if you can. Maybe what you do for a living is close enough to what we do that you can get an attendee pass.
Yep. So keep an eye on our social feeds. We'll be posting updates from there. We're going to have a killer booth. And if you are in the industry and you haven't registered yet, I mean, what better reason to come out than to come hang with us? So be a presence there and have some fun at CEDIA next week. I believe it's Thursday through Saturday that show is running on. So we'll hope to see some friendly faces and other people who tune into the happy hour. And then after that, we'll have an event at a dealer called Halston Entertainment in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That will be our next official audiophile happy hour. So also check out our feeds, newsletter, etc. for more details on that. If you're in that Minneapolis, Minnesota area, we'll be doing another event similar to the Dallas event, just in a totally different look and feel from their awesome showroom. So looking forward to that as well. Well, I think we're about quarter way through, so we're about to do a giveaway, and let's bring out Youthman because I think people are really anxious to hear what he has to say. So first giveaway,
and we're going to temporarily say goodbye. Let's not just kick Ed out without saying.
No, let's bring him. Ed actually suggested keeping him in because he vibes so well.
Yeah,
So
okay.
if you don't mind five heads.
We go right back.
Five heads are better than four, as they say.
You can leave me on.
All
I
right.
won't steal his thunder. I promise.
That's right. Although we should have a technical question showdown between you and Youthman and see if we can stump you guys. But we'll see. Bring your A game commenters. We want to see what's up. So first giveaway of the evening, pair of Prime Bookshelf speakers. The winner is Michael Perry. Michael Perry. I'm going to try to enunciate my names here really well so there's no confusion. Prime Bookshelves, Michael Perry. Congratulations. And we'll get those shipped out. Vince will get your information. So with that said, we're very happy to welcome, and I know a lot of people are very happy to welcome as well, Michael, aka Youthman, from YouTube, from Facebook, and elsewhere on the interwebs, I guess you could say. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Guys, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me again. It's been a long time since we hung out, man.
It has. I think the audio advice.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, appreciate it, Gary.
So I know you have a lot of different things you're involved in. One of those was a live stream earlier today with a gentleman who's been on our broadcast here before, Brad Pipkins, the home theater gamer.
Yeah.
Do you care to share any insights about what you guys were talking about, or anything that maybe people should retune in for that for?
Yeah, sure. So Denon just announced this morning. I know we've been hearing some rumors. There's a lot of leaks that have been going on as far as what new AVRs they were producing. And so there was some chit chat and some talk about maybe Direct Live. Is that going to be added as a feature? And so this morning we did get the press release. And so I hit Brad up. I'm like, hey, you want to do a live stream with me? Let's just kind of go through these models. We'll just do it live. And so we looked at all the models that they had. And probably the biggest feature is the ability to upgrade the AVRs. Certain ones, not all models will have this, but certain models, some of the higher end ones, will let you upgrade sometime in 2023. We don't have a date. We don't even have a price, but you can pay a little bit extra, get a the kind of like a download as far as like firmware update or software update to be able to add Direct Live. So that is super exciting because we've been asking for that for a long time as a home theater community. Like, is Denon and Marantz, are they going to be able to implement that at some time in the future? But it's really cool that it's giving customers now the choice. You've got Odyssey. If you want more than what Odyssey can do, or if you just want something different, maybe you like what Direct brings to the table, definitely a little bit more of a learning curve in Direct Live, but I think it adds a lot more customization and just capability there. So pretty exciting stuff, but some of the new AVRs, man, they're not cheap. That is for sure. So
no, I think that's definitely been hit by some inflation. But although I will say with the Dirac stuff, Ed, your team has gone through the official training with Dirac. So, nice. I mean, if there are technical questions, SVS team's a good resource to turn to if you're investing in one of these receivers.
Yeah, we had Dirac come in and give us a technical presentation. So my team would be, up to speed and versed on it. So it's a cool product. It's high tech. As Youthman said, it does lean kind of towards the tweaker who wants to really drill into the setup and customize the EQ and bass management and everything like that. So we'll see. I think more choices for the consumer are always a positive.
100%.
No doubt. And Youthman, I totally skipped over my first question. And I know you said you've been traveling, you haven't seen and been tuning into a lot, but you did have one recommendation that I think family people and gamers would love to hear about.
Yeah. So as I shared backstage, they asked me what, kind of content I've been watching. Of course, I make a lot of content on YouTube and on my channel. I've been traveling lately. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch like series and episodes, but I have purchased Modern Warfare 2. And so just recently the beta came out. And so literally as soon as we get done tonight, I'm texting my son. He and probably about 5 of his friends, maybe 4, we're going to jump on and just play together. So we've been enjoying that. Super, super fun. Great immersive experience. Got some good effects. And then I'm really, like, even more than that, I'm looking forward to God of War Ragnarok, because that's got just some beautiful cinematics. If you've got a killer home theater system, you've got those big SVS subwoofers, man, dude, it is phenomenal. And so I'm excited about Ragnarok coming out.
So just back to the gaming for a minute. I mean, I know a lot of people sort of think of gaming headphones and, sort of a more personal experience. I know you're talking about gaming with your family. Mm-hmm. What does it add to have that multi-channel setup and the subwoofers and the whole sort of more physical experience as opposed to just wearing some cans on your ears?
Sure. So when you're playing multiplayer, pretty much we kind of have to have the cans, because used to, if I played with my system, you've got sound coming out of your speakers. It's going into the microphone. It creates this funky feedback loop. So unfortunately, it's hard to play multiplayer. But when I'm playing games like God of War, cans come off, but I got to make sure that Jessica is like either not at home so I can crank it up.
Yeah.
But there's some scenes in there that are just absolutely immersive. You hear the your enemies coming up from behind you, and so you can kind of tell positionally where they're at, and it's really adds to that immersiveness. Of course, I've got a big 150-inch diagonal screen, so that makes it visually immersive as well. And then when you've got those big, what was his name? He was the big serpent. Forget what his name was, but when he roars, man, the LFE in that just literally will shake your room. And so just definitely a whole lot of fun. So I'm super excited about that.
God of War is a pretty compelling storyline too.
It is. I've been playing it for almost 20 years now, I think.
Yeah,
It's my favorite game series. I have a couple of Kratos collectibles back here. I've already got the game on pre-order.
Yes, me too.
And, how could you not love Kratos and his son? You know, you just root for him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping they don't ruin it with a movie, but you never know. It would make an amazing movie.
I made a video on my channel back when I played through it. So I didn't start that until way late. I was probably 3 or 4 years after they had produced it. And so I began to play it and I just fell in love with it. And I made a video, and the video was titled something like the best movie I've ever experienced. And people were in the comments are like, this isn't a movie. I'm like, just watch the video and you'll see what I mean. But the story in it, the cinematography, the surround, it's done very, very well. So even if you're not a gamer, which I don't consider myself a gamer, I'm super casual gamer guy, but I really, really was impressed. And I see a lot of people in the chat. They're like, yeah, dude, I love me some God of War. I see Michael says, boy.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't have that
So is Kratos going to be played by The Rock?
Man, I hope not.
That'd be fun.
Hey, that would get some people out to the theater. I know that much.
Sure.
So this comment by Victor B actually segues into my next question for you, Michael. And I know I just sort of spilled the beans that I'm building my own home theater here. So
that's exciting.
I'd have to find some all worlds collide there and get you up to Rhode Island to do a tour once all things are set and good. But it's one of my favorite segments that you do on your YouTube channel is these just over the top killer home theater tours. And I'm just curious, like, of all the ones that you've done, is there one that's just so over the top, or is there something about some of these tours that just sort of really grabbed your attention and made it seem like, this is the pinnacle of what you can achieve?
Yeah. So really I've probably filmed maybe 40 to 50 home theater tours over the past 4 years. I've done some budget ones that are done in like a 12 by 13 bedroom. I've done some in garages. I've done bonus rooms. And what I try to share on my channel, I truly believe that everybody can have a home theater, even if it's in your living room, a bedroom. Just make it happen. Use the space that you have. If you can't go with a 9.2.6, go with a 5.1.2. Something's better than nothing. And you can get some killer sound out of a lot of, even a small room. But two of the home theaters that really have stood out like above the rest, one was from a gentleman by the name of Tony. And Tony goes by SOWK on the AVS forum. And so Tony's is super, super unique. I've never experienced anything quite like it. And here's some of the things. Not only does he have just a beautiful image, incredibly immersive sound, but Tony actually has D-Box. And so
So
the seats actually move with the motion. And if you watch the beginning of the video, I have it in the intro. So we got it really cranked up just for the video, but we're going nuts. So what was interesting is that we were watching Unbroken. I think it's Unbroken.
Yeah, the war movie.
Yeah, where they're flying in the plane, they open up the bay doors. Okay. So we're watching that, and there's a part where it dives down, and as it dives down, the chair starts leaning forward, and I'm like, and it was just super subtle. It wasn't crazy, but it just added to that immersiveness. Then we watched Fury, and every time the tank, fired that big cannon, the seat would just kind of, move a little bit. And I'm like, that's cool. And so the idea behind that is if it's done right, it shouldn't take you out of the movie, but it should add to the movie. And Tony did a really great job of that. Not only does he have D-Box, but he has Crosons. So those are kind of like tactile transducers. Really high. Yeah. So now you've got even more immersiveness. He's got massive, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think he has 8 18s in his room.
Jeez.
So lots of tactile LFE. And again, it's not about output, it's about, good seat to seat, effortless bass kind of thing. So I'm a big proponent of multiple subwoofers, and I know you guys are too. But the other thing that he has in this that I didn't expect, and so each time he would just add a little something. He'd give a demo, and then he'd turn the D-box on, and then he'd give a demo, and then he'd add the Croson. So he was kind of building up to this climax. And so we get to one of the last demos of his kind of a walkthrough of his system. And I don't remember if we were watching Ford versus Ferrari. I'm just going to go with that because I know that was part of the demo. You're hearing this great sound, the car's roaring. And when it cuts to a scene where he's driving in the convertible and, the top is down, I literally felt wind on me. And it's
4D.
It was 4D. So he and his buddy Nick is a genius. He's a programmer. So Tony had this idea. It's like, hey, how can we add wind to my theater? So Nick programmed and made a custom program. Now you have to manually, at least at this point, go into a movie and you watch it and go, okay, on this scene when they fire up the jets on the Star Wars, and you see the blast. Okay, we need to add wind there, and you can add it like super soft. Like there's 4 or 5 levels of intensity, and you have to set the delay to where it hits you when it happens on screen, and then you have to turn it off slightly before.
Wow, super nerdy. It's great.
It definitely, but it is, and again, it's one of those things. I think with everything, you can overdo something, or you can spend the time to calibrate it and just dial it in. And when you do that, it adds this immersiveness and this seamlessness, so that it really brings you into the movie and doesn't take you out of the movie. And I think so many times in calibration, we can do that by boosting our subwoofers too much or cranking up our surrounds too much because we want to hear them. But a lot of times all that does is distract us from what's going on in the movie instead of just trying to fully envelop us. But that literally, bar none, I've been to one that was a lot more expensive, one that has 12 theater seats. So it was massive, 206-inch screen, gorgeous setup, sounded phenomenal. But I think Tony stands out just because there were so many different elements that I've never gotten in any other home theater.
That's cool. That takes me back to the movie Matinee with John Goodman back in, if you remember that one, where it was like a 1950s movie theater and they had smell-o-vision and all that.
Exactly.
There was a ride at Disney years back called Alien Encounter, and it actually got pulled out because it scared too many people.
Right.
But it had, you go in and there's like an alien outbreak inside this lab, and the seats move like D-box, and there's mist and wind and stuff coming at you. So it was super awesome.
Next level for that Youthman is going to be, he might be able to strip the metadata out that corresponds to those sound effects and the soundtrack and do the programming that way. That's so probably next level.
So there is a way to do that. The hard part is it's so much better when you do it manually because, number one, you don't want the wind always happening. You really want to just it's kind of like a good steak. I mean, you want to put a little seasoning on it, but let the steak kind of be there for itself. If you put, salt on it all the time, then you're going to just taste salt. And so does that kind of make sense?
Kind of. I mean, you'd have to strip out the actual sound data that corresponds to that effect and then have it turn on or turn off in accordance with that.
Yeah, there's comments saying you need to get on that and do it.
So, well, think about this. There's a scene we were watching one time where somebody walks over to the window and they just literally open up the window. And so at that moment, you feel a little bit of the light breeze. And then when they shut the window, then it stops.
That's human engineering right there.
Yeah, well, that's scary realistic. And I absolutely love it. I can imagine what you could do with the horror genre if you really got into some of those movies in terms of getting people very uncomfortable in their seats there. So, I mean, that just sounds absolutely incredible between the D-box and the wind machine and the amount of LFE. So I think that more than exceeded my expectations for what you were going to talk about. It makes me think I'm not going far enough with my home theater. So that's what makes this a hobby, though. We'll all just keep adding and having more fun. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, somewhat, for maybe people who aren't going with Kaleidoscape and D-Box and sort of these very high-end upgrades that you can make to your home theater, what tips do you have for people who may be building a system on a budget and maybe looking for areas to save, or what the best options are to piece a system together but not necessarily go all out in terms of funding?
Sure. I think initially when I was building my home theater 15 years ago, I reached out to a local company. I said, hey, what would it cost for you to build me a home theater? And it was complete sticker shock. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And I was like, okay, I'm on a budget. I'm on a Youthman budget. And I'm like, I can't do that. And so one of the recommendations I would be to make is try to do as much of the process yourself. Now, if you're building a room, you may not be able to construct it, but maybe you run the low voltage wire. Maybe you build your own acoustic panels, because those can be done a fraction of the cost versus going out and buying them. Another thing is, if you're not handy, like say, for instance, I wanted to have a riser. I have no idea how to build a riser, but I've got some friends that have some tools. They're handy with wood. I'll carry stuff. I'll hammer, I'll screw, I'll nail, I'll help lift. I just need your brain to help me figure out what to do and when to do it. And so get some other people involved that are handy in those areas. And same thing with calibration. You can pay somebody to calibrate it, or you can learn. And there's just so many great resources out there. A lot of them are free on YouTube, so that you can learn pretty much whatever you want to learn. So DIY, like I built my screen, that saved me a ton of money doing that. We probably have less than $500 in a 150-inch acoustic transparent screen. If I were to buy that today, it might cost me $2,000-$3,000, or maybe even more. And so you can definitely save some money there. And I would also recommend just do your homework, do your research, and determine what your needs are. It's really easy for us to, just go out there and say, man, I need this and I need this, but maybe you don't need 418s. Maybe you don't need a Trinnov processor. So kind of figure out what's going to meet your needs and what are your goals. And if you can kind of determine those up front and have a good plan, it's going to save you in the long run. So I mean, that would be kind of just a couple of things I can think of offhand. So
no, I think that's great. Is there any, I'll throw it out to the rest of the team if you have other ideas, because I know there's not many people who are working with an unlimited budget. So, I'll just toss it out there if you got any other tips.
I did all my room treatments myself. I did acoustic panels, diffusers, and bass traps. My bass traps are actually based on our PC subwoofers, so they look like PCs in the corner, which is pretty cool. But I would say room treatments can take a mid-grade system to very high level, just because of how immersive they make the room sound. I've heard very expensive systems that frankly sounded terrible in untreated rooms. So I would say, if you're really looking for an immersive experience on a budget, do your own room treatments and take your system to the next level.
Yeah, and you don't have to do everything at once either. I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake, is they go and they get a budget, or they talk to people and they're like, okay, it's going to be, $15K or whatever. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it all at once. Maybe
that would be my hack. I agree with Larry. I think start small, go step by step. When you make a purchase, buy something that has been validated out there, that you really research, because then when you want to upgrade, you probably will, because it's a journey. There will be some resale value in the aftermarket. We take pride at SVS in creating stuff that has value to people, even if it's already been owned by somebody.
Well, we owe giveaway, so let me take a break here before we get to our next question. And next giveaway is going to be our SB-1000 Pro Subwoofer. And drum roll, please. Winner is Jim Anderson. Congratulations, Jim Anderson.
Congratulations.
You've got a nice subwoofer coming your way. Well, on that note, Youthman, it's no secret to anyone who's checked out your channel that you're a bit of a bass head. You do like big subwoofers.
I do.
And I'm curious, if you have specific demos that you love to show off infrasonics, like that bass that just hits you without even really hearing it? Because I know you've sampled a lot of content. So give me some top recommendations for infrasonic bass.
Sure. So the hard part for me is I don't know what frequencies are playing. What I do know is, like in Ready Player One, when the dinosaur stomps, when the wrecking balls hit, when Kong jumps off and he lands on the freeway. I've been in some people's homes and doing these home theater tours, and you hear that impact, but you don't feel it as much. And so I'm thinking that there may be some lower frequencies there, and maybe there's subwoofers rolling off. Maybe it's above 20 hertz. But another one that I really, really like is A Quiet Place 2. There are some scenes there where it'll shake your room. It'll shake my door. It's just phenomenal. There's kind of like I guess I call it the bathtub scene, and she's downstairs and the monster's kind of crawling upstairs. And so you're getting this great Atmos mix. And then he comes downstairs, and it's just, I mean, there's just some big, deep notes that it plays in there through that. And it's a pretty long process. And then there's the whole movie, man, just is filled with that. And then maybe I'll give you one more, Live, Die, Repeat, or some people call it Edge of Tomorrow. It had 2 different names at one point. But that whole movie, man, there is a ton of low frequency, and not even just the intro. I know we always go to that crazy sine wave and at the beginning, but throughout that movie, there's just a lot of great LFE that'll really kind of, not tax your subwoofer, but it'll test them.
For sure. So. One sort of dark horse that I've come across, and it's a very sort of quick scene, but as the holidays approach, Polar Express, when that train rolls up the first time, my goodness, if that doesn't put your subwoofer to the test in a moment that just sort of like gets you from sort of passively observing to like, what's going on? And my family literally thought there was an earthquake when that train rolled up. So that's a good one. And I don't know anyone else. I mean, I think, Larry, you got your obvious one there with Ninja Turtles, but if you guys have additional suggestions, throw them out.
Dude, we got to play that last week for a bunch of people too, so that was kind of fun. I think recently that the Ghostbusters opening scene of Afterlife has been a go-to for us. If you want something a little more neutral, the Mission Impossible Rogue Nation car chase, you're getting the engine roars. I think for just stupid bass, we do the Turtles obviously, but there's the bass sweep, as you mentioned, in Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, they're called the Turtles now? It's a code word.
First name of basis.
Yeah. Then trying to think of some of the other big ones we do that are just over. There's my dogs. My wife's going to pick up my son from driver's ed.
U571 came up on
yes.
The DTS version. Fantastic.
Yeah. That was a great demo, especially when the depth charges hit, you hear the cord kind of going through the room and stuff. But I think you all know that I've got a zillion demos, so this is kind of fun.
So you've done a lot of sort of home theater setup and tips style videos, Youthman, including the best SVS subwoofer control app video that I've ever seen. But I'm curious, in doing this as long as you have and in talking to all the people you have, what are some things that people get wrong most frequently? And Ed, I think this is a great question for you too. Like, what are just constant mistakes or common issues that people have when setting up their theaters?
Sure. So one thing that, SVS is known for, I love your subwoofers. They're incredible. So in talking about subwoofers, I think one of the things that people tend to do, and I've been guilty of it in my own setups, is just putting your subwoofer where it looks the best. The problem is sometimes you can move it a foot, 6 inches, 2 foot, put it on the other side of the room, and you'll get a drastically different experience. And so I always tell people, don't just rely on like the subwoofer crawl. That only tells us part of the equation, but get something like a free software called REW, and then get a calibrated microphone. It'll run you about $100, $120. But until you can actually physically see what's going on in your room, a lot of times you're just guessing. You don't know if you've got a kind of like a null in, say, your 30 hertz to 40 hertz range. You may be hearing lots of bass, but maybe that's certain frequencies. Maybe that's the 40 to 50 or 40 to 60 hertz. So that's like tremendous output, but then you're lacking output down here. So the first thing I would mention is get a calibrated microphone and then learn how to use REW. Again, there's some free resources on YouTube that'll walk you through how to take just some basic frequency sweeps of your subwoofers. And then you can play around with things like phase. And if you got multiple subwoofers, then, there's another rabbit hole called mini DSP, like a 2x4 HD that I use in my system. But definitely, at least measure it, see what you're getting. And then probably the other one, and this one's, it can be free because you can get an app on your phone, but just level matching your speakers. A lot of people rely on, we were talking about Dirac Live. We rely on things like Odyssey to get our levels right. But I've found even in my room, sometimes I'll run Odyssey and my surrounds are way different. We're talking 5 or 6 dB different. And for whatever reason, Odyssey didn't get it right. So every time that I run calibration, I always pull out my SPL meter and I measure each speaker and just make sure they're the same level, at least to begin with. And then if you need to boost up maybe your center channel, some people like to do that 2 or 3 dB, or maybe they want to hear more of their Atmos speakers, and that's preference, but at least get all your speakers level matched. You'll have a much, much more immersive experience if you'll do that.
No, I think that's great advice. And I actually meant to ask this question before when we were talking about some of the home theater tours, but decor wise, is there anything crazy that you've seen, maybe form and function come together that's worth talking about? And I'm going to pop an image on screen here that sort of goes along with what I think your answer is going to be.
You got to check this out. I was doing a home theater tour at Charles Keene. He's up in North Florida. And so his room on the left side would be those left 2 panels. And on the right side, the Spider-Man and the Batman. But Charles makes his own acoustic panels. And so he has a CNC machine. And so he can add whatever logos. And, you got the Batman, the DC. So that is just super, super cool. So it's painted black, but the part that's CNC, that's just raw wood. And so it stands out, has a real nice contrast. And then so he makes the frames, routes that out, uses the CNC machine to do the design part of it. And then there's some free online resources that you can get movie posters, which you see there. And then he just sends that off to a company and they print them, send him the fabric, and then he just installs a fabric. And so, again, if you can do this on your own, you don't have to get fancy like that. But I just think that is so slick.
Really
I've
cool.
never seen it. I've seen the movie posters, but I've never seen somebody make the frame and make that even like decorative and just really fitting for a thematic room. So it just looks really awesome.
So for lifestyle considerations, could I get my family portrait emblazoned on one of these?
100%. Maybe you like sunsets, or maybe you like, literally you can do whatever you want. You can put your animals up there. If you're into, movies, you want to put those posters, you can do whatever you want, or solid colors to match your room decor. So there's a lot of ways that you could utilize that.
I've seen some in-wall subs. And in fact, we did some way back in the day that had exactly that. You could put whatever image you wanted over the subwoofer covering instead of just being
nice.
It was either matching the paint or contrasting with the paint. We had like one with a 57 Chevy on it. Their family portraits. Now you could do all the blockbuster artwork. So it's a cool way to dress up your theater and potentially hide either room treatments or in-wall subs.
Well, I'm sure if you need a recommendation for something like that, Youthman's very responsive. So find him on his YouTube channel and Facebook group, and I'm sure you'll get a recommendation for where to get those. And in that vein, I know you manage a Facebook community group as well. You want to give a little plug and tell us what that's all about?
Sure. So I created one. It's just called the Youthman Crew. And really just the heartbeat behind that is, as my channel began to grow, I get a lot of questions, as you can imagine, and they'll message me on Facebook Messenger or in the comments, and I physically cannot respond to 100,000 subscribers. And then there's plenty of other people that are asking questions that aren't subscribers. So who knows what that number is. And so I created the Youthman Crew so that we can have a community that I can refer people to when they've got those long questions. Go hang out on the Youthman Crew. There's a great community there that can just really help you along your journey, answering those questions for you, because it's a whole lot easier for a community to help somebody than for one individual content creator to try to provide like one-on-one, help and support along their journey. So
That's awesome. I'm gonna do another giveaway, but Gary, if it's cool with you, I think maybe we keep Michael around for the lightning round. What do you think?
He's such an interesting. I'm like really listening, and I love your perspective on stuff, Michael. It's great.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I hope you can. Do you mind staying through the
Yeah,
end?
I'm totally good.
I mean, he's
Totally
only
good.
been doing live streams for like 3 hours today, so what's
Yeah.
another 15 minutes
Yeah.
at this
Oh
point?
man, it's no big deal.
He's just hitting his stride. You can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just
Haven't-
getting warmed up. All right, next giveaway. We're gonna do a subwoofer, a PB-1000 Pro Subwoofer, and the winner of that is Mr. Craig Jackson. Congratulations,
Yeah.
Craig Jackson. You got a nice ported PB-1000 Pro Subwoofer coming your
Party
way.
time.
So, we've been back on the event trail, and I know earlier this year, we collaborated on an event that you did called the Midwestern AV Experience. First, is it coming back next year? And second of all, what was sort of the impetus for you wanting to do that?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is I've been to several trade shows, not a lot, but I've been to trade shows. And what I get out of them is we go to, let's say, a hotel, we go to this room and this room and this room and this room, and we listen to some cool demos, listen to some cool systems. But the problem is typically when I go, I'm going by myself. I walk into a room, I hear some music demos or maybe a home theater system, and then I just continue on. And then by the time I finish up, I go home and I just look back and go, what did I really get from that? And so one thing I feel that trade shows are missing is the relational aspect of it. And so I began to brainstorm. Actually, let me back up. I flew up to Kansas City. I was doing 9 home theater tours in 4 days. And one of the gentlemen that I did a home theater, we began to just build a friendship. And he said, hey, Michael, in a month, I'm going to be doing a projector shootout in my basement. He said, I'd love to have you back if you want to come and hang out. And I said, that'd be cool. But I mean, I just did this big event with you guys for 4 or 5 days. I don't know if Jessica, my wife's, going to want me to turn right around and do it. So he postponed it like another month. And I flew back up there and we had the best time. We had about 20 guys in his basement and we put 8 projectors, 2 screens side by side, blind testing. And we were just looking at, how do these compare? What do the black levels look like? What are the contrasts? And we learned a lot from that. And I told Ryan after the event, I said, this was so much fun. And the community aspect was so incredible. We need to do this every year. I don't know what that looks like, but we began to brainstorm and just think this through and began a process. And so we just said, let's make this happen. And so 6 months from that event, we're like, okay, we're going to schedule an event. We're going to rent out a place. We rented out the Lead Center in Lawrence, Kansas, and had a phenomenal time. It was a really small kind of, I don't want to say like intimate event. It was definitely not thousands of people, but you can't do something like what we want to accomplish with thousands of people.
Right.
And so we had the brand new projectors, all the ones from JVC, NZ7, NZ8, NZ9. We had the older NX5. We had Sony's 3 brand new projectors, I think it's 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. And so we were able to put them side by side on 150-inch 16:9 screens in blind testing, so people didn't know what they were looking at, and just really get to see, okay, what does, and we had the new Epson LS12000. What is a lower end projector? How does that look compared to one that costs 3 times as much? What do you physically see that are different? And just giving people things like that, experiences. So we did projector shootout. We did room correction. That was interesting. So we had several different room corrections, Dirac Live. We had a Lingdorf processor there that had Room Perfect. We had Odyssey. And so we were able to switch in real time from one to the other. So you can physically hear, okay, how did Dirac Live do in this room? Now, of course, that's going to change depending on your room and how bad acoustically it has to make corrections. But it was just an experience that people don't normally get a chance to do. And then we did some speaker comparisons, and we did the Martin Logan Neoliths. They're $100,000 a pair, but it's an electrostat kind of speaker. We had the RTJs, what I call the Tower of Power. So those are horn loaded. Then we had some JBL speakers. Those are line array. So just giving people an opportunity to hear different types of sound and so you may figure out, okay, I really like an electrostatic sound, or I like a horn loaded sound, or a line array. So that's really the heartbeat behind M-Wave. We want to create experiences that you can't get at a normal trade show, and we want to build community. And that's the biggest thing, because I think it's cool to have toys, it's cool to have processors, and it's cool to have subwoofers. But if you don't have people that can share that same passion like we're doing here today, it really doesn't mean a whole lot.
I mean, we share such a common energy there, because, just the event we did last weekend, and that's the exact kind of MO that we have for those types of events, is bringing people together around our passion for great sound, and just letting people enjoy multiple different levels of SVS systems in a way that, they may never be able to do otherwise. You're not going to bring all that stuff to your home and set it all up and then make the decision. So I think that's great. And I think the industry really needs to do a lot more of that. And I just applaud you for taking that on. And, we look forward to it coming back and hopefully being a part of it down the road.
100%.
It's really the grassroots aspect of it. As many who know, SVS came up through the grassroots, started in the late 90s, when AV forms were in their infancy, and we sort of came up through that. And the common theme running through a lot of these AV forums and other social media outlets is the enthusiast, is the personal connection, is, we used to call them get-togethers. People would just, hey, let's have a subwoofer shootout or projector shootout or whatever. And people would travel hundreds of miles to meet their friends that they knew virtually and make that connection. It's a human connection. And I'm proud to say we've never really lost that at SVS, even though we've grown. We're much larger than we used to be. We still have the connection to our customers. We still have the one-on-one interactions. We're still connected to the AV forums and the enthusiasts out there, and that's a good feeling. That's kind of, I think, what you're driving at, is you never want to lose that passion and the human element of this hobby.
And I also agree that this in-person aspect to it is so critical. I mean, people forget that these are products that can only be appreciated in a physical space. You can only talk about them so much, and being together. I'm just so stoked because we're doing it again. We were in Dallas last week at Nebraska Furniture Mart, and I would say we estimated probably 3/4 of the people that were there were they knew why they were going there. They knew about SVS, and they really wanted to experience it in person and ask their questions in person, and kind of validate whatever they thought they were going to have happen in reality. And I'm sure that's a lot of what's going on with your things, Michael.
Yeah.
So let's jump into some questions here. I've got a bunch of good questions that I think we can knock out here in about 8 minutes or so. And Gary, this one might lead you down for a bit of a lecture, but let's see what happens. Russell E asks, how are we able to price our speakers at sort of a mid-level, yet make them compete with the much higher price speakers? Like, what's our sort of design MO in terms of actually trying to pull that off?
Some of what I'm going to say is going to sound almost like too easy, but it's really true that most speaker companies in the price ranges where we are, and Michael, you might not agree with me, so you definitely don't feel like you have to nod your head and smile when you hear what I'm going to say. I would say most of them, their highest priority isn't the best sound. It's some other things. It's either their own profit margin, the dealer's profit margin, what the speaker, they put maybe some expensive appearance things going on with them, or just things that aren't necessarily enhancements to how the speaker sounds in the overall user experience. We always, and this will maybe sound a little self-serving, we always feel like we're building the speaker for the person that's going to end up having it in their living room. We're not worried about any other stops along the way. We're certainly happy to partner with a retailer, but only to make a better experience for the person who ends up owning the speaker. And that makes us a little bit different. And also, look, I mean, we are a lean machine. We try to keep it where the meat of the product goes to the customer. And then finally, and this is maybe a little more esoteric, we have the most wonderful engineers on the planet because we have a combination of engineering expertise and rigor, but also passion. Sometimes you'll find in a smaller speaker company a lot of passion, but not necessarily the engineering expertise to back it up. And maybe they don't have engineering facilities, anechoic chambers to be able to really create amazing products. The larger companies probably do have the engineering resources, but they've lost all the passion for creating amazing experiences for their customers. So we kind of like to view ourselves as in the sweet spot. We have amazing engineers. They're super capable. We have phenomenal engineering facilities and resources. But these folks that we have designing our speakers and subwoofers, they are super crazy passionate about creating product excellence, just really excellent experiences for our customers. Does that answer it? And yes, it was a lecture, Nick. I apologize.
Well, can I add on to that really quickly? You know, I think something else that sets us apart from a lot of the other brands out there is if you look at where we start as a brand, like say our Prime speakers and our Ultra speakers or our 1000 Pro and 16 Ultra, the build quality is the same on everything. And you're not getting an inferior entry-level product because either the larger stuff doesn't fit or you can't afford it. And you'll find other products out there that there's a reference line and an entry point, and the entry point is built in inferior quality, typically like particle board or paper drivers or things like that. We don't do any of that. And that's one of the biggest.
I think that's such a good comment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's our, and I'll stop talking because this does ignite my passion. But this is one of the things I do talk about with our engineering team. There's this, we'll make a flagship series. They'll be crazy expensive, and then we'll have another series that's more affordable that a normal person can buy, and it'll borrow some technologies from the flagship series. And to me, that's just like saying, oh, sorry, Mr. or Ms. Customer, poor you. You can't afford the flagship series, but here's this kind of lamer one that you get. For us, we want to make great experiences for that are within an affordable range of people.
You should never feel like you're settling at a price point in our lineup. All of our products are aspirational. So if when you look at where you can afford and where you want to be with your system, you're not settling. You're going to get a great experience, and you're going to get all of the technology and engineering prowess behind that we can deliver at that price point in the marketplace.
Well said, everyone. In fact, Smith will call me up sometimes when we're bringing out something that's less expensive. Like I especially remember when the 3000 series came out. And he's like, Gary, these are really good. They're really good. They're better than, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's fine. We'll challenge you. We'll bring our best performance to a price range that's a little more affordable.
You are fond of saying, it's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's get some quick rapid fire answers. This first one, totally off the wall. I've never even thought about this, but hey, maybe it'll help somebody. Joel asks for the surrounds on a subwoofer or a speaker. Is there anything you ever have to do to care for those to help them last longer? Like, rub them with oil, something like that would help your performance and make them, with their longevity, help it out a bit?
The old ones used to be foam. Anybody who remembers the acoustic research and advents, they would rot out. A little cottage industry sprung up refoaming woofers. All of the surrounds today are typically NBR or a similar type product, resistant to environmental factors, resistant to ozone. Aside from maybe putting a little bit of automotive grade Armor All or equivalent to keep them shiny, there's really nothing you need to do to maintain the integrity of the woofer surround.
Another subwoofer question: what does our 50 megahertz analog devices DSP add that subwoofers without something maybe that sophisticated would lack?
Ooh, go for it, Ed. I love your answer.
Just tons of DSP technology behind there. We can have that much more power for equalization, high and low pass filters, phase, room gain comp, equalization of the sub internally. There's just so many more tools at our disposal when we have a microprocessor with that level of horsepower. It just opens up a whole new world for us, and it makes our products that much better.
All right, here's a real quick one. A recommended low pass filter for a speaker that goes down to 47 hertz.
Ported or sealed speaker?
I ask Fat Tony who left the comment.
Just say it. It depends.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say it. I've been banned on that one. Recommended low pass would be where the speaker starts to roll off. If it's sealed, set the low pass for 12 dB per octave. If it's ported, set the low pass for 24 dB per octave. And then you'll have the same slope on the subwoofer as the speaker, and you'll have phase symmetry and a better integration. But you do want to set the low pass pretty damn close to where the speaker starts rolling off.
But to say what Michael said, because I really liked what you said, Michael, about how you set it up. You follow these scripted rules of how you do it, step by step, which you just detailed, and Michael, you did earlier. But then take some time. You're in a special room. You couldn't possibly have the exactly same gear that everyone else had. So there's always going to be nuances to it, and trust your ears. They're the most accurate measuring instrument that you have available to you.
All right. I know we're always punctual, but I want to do one more, and then we'll do the giveaway and a little teaser here. And Michael, I'm going to ask you, because I think we at SVS probably all have the same thoughts on this one. But what are your thoughts on mixing one brand of subwoofer with a different brand of speakers?
Sure.
That's it. What's your response to that?
So 100%. I mean, I know a lot of guys, and even myself, I have run different. I mean, I had the SVS PB-16s. I had 2 of those running with Klipsch La Scalas. Now that's a kind of a weird combo because you've got 40-year-old speakers with brand new technology and subwoofers. It sounded amazing. So definitely I have no problem recommending somebody getting one subwoofer. All right. So true confession, Klipsch has never made amazing subwoofers. So, I mean, I always have loved the Klipsch sound, but I wanted something that could provide more bottom end, more output, dig deeper than what I had. And I had 4 Klipsch RSW 15s. So that's 4 15s. They had a 15-inch active and a 15-inch passive. So there's 4 of those, 2 stacked on each other. And I replaced that with 2 PB-16s. And I felt that I got more output. I got lower extension, which is really what I was longing for, because the Klipsch drop off really, really fast at about close to 20 hertz. And the PB-16s dig quite a bit deeper. So absolutely, if you want to run a certain brand and you want to go with a different brand subwoofer, I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
Gary, this is your chance to make the subjective, objective commentary that I think is so, it just really sums this up pretty well.
Well, I don't, we have a very interesting guest, but I don't totally agree with that answer. So, I mean, I do think subwoofers have multiple character, and we're going over, and I feel bad when we do that, but subwoofers have multiple, what I would call metrics in order to excel. We say 5 different things, and I think it's very unlikely that 2 different branded subwoofers, even if they're both sealed or both ported, are going to be the perfect choice in a room. That doesn't mean it's not, like, if you have one, you don't have means to, not use that one, and you want to have 2 and you prefer a different brand. Okay. But the best scenario would be 2 of the same brand, because that's the more likely situation, and probably even 2 of the same model, because that's the most likely situation where they're going to be exactly the same on these 5 fronts, which I'll just say quickly. Low frequency extension below what's audible, below human audibility. Play as loud as the user would like to play. Accurate frequency response. Transient response that is very quick, and that's something SVS does well, but I think every brand is probably a little different. And then seamlessly blending with the full range speaker. So if 2 brands do all 5 of those things exactly the same, seems unlikely to me. I'll leave it at that, and I hope I'm being respectful, because Michael, I've really enjoyed all your insights.
So my question is, Nick, I understood you were asking, can you take a brand of speaker and pair it with a different brand subwoofer?
Yeah,
was that the
correct.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I heard it. I heard there's 2 different brand subwoofers.
Yeah.
No.
My
It was
bad.
mixing a different brand speaker and subwoofer. So I think everything you said, Gary, still applies. When you're looking for a great subwoofer, if it does those 5 things, you can put it with any speakers. It doesn't matter. it's going to make it the soundstage that much better.
You don't have to have the same brand of speakers and subs because
we
subs
started our business that way, right?
Well, our business still, to be fair, and I now I understand Michael's answer. I was like, okay, I totally agree with what you said, Michael. So to be fair, lots of SVS subwoofers are matched with speakers that are not SVS.
Yes,
we know this.
All right. Well, this is
officially not. I don't talk about anybody's products that aren't good. I will never do that. But the brand you mentioned, their speakers get matched with our subwoofers all the time.
Sure.
So this is officially our longest running audiophile happy hour ever. And I am going to get to that final giveaway, but just a little housekeeping. Thank you to Michael Youthman. He is very close to 100,000 subscribers. And if we can get him that much closer tonight, go subscribe to the Youthman YouTube channel. Let's get him there. And we're going to see you next week at CEDIA. Super excited for that. Anyone who's going to be in the Dallas area and thinks they can make it in, we'd love to see you as well. We'll be doing some live streaming and some other social posts from that show. Next happy hour is going to be at a dealer event, Halston Entertainment in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You can find that Eventbrite available now. We'll also be promoting it on all our channels as well.
Are we doing live from CEDIA? Did we say that?
Not an official happy hour. I think there's too many variables there with setup and making sure that we got to get the booth locked down that we didn't want to commit to it. But hey, you never know. We can pull one out of our hat and just have some fun on the fly. So I'll never say never, but at this point, we're not scheduling one because we don't want to get hopes up too high. But we'll be there and we'll be sharing updates from the show. So with that said, October 20th is the next happy hour. Final giveaway of the evening is a pair of SVS Prime Tower speakers, and the winner is Jeff North. Congratulations, Jeff North.
Congratulations.
Tower speakers coming your way.
Right there behind me.
Again, thank you to Youthman. Subscribe to his channel. Check out his Facebook group.
Really great having you, Youthman.
I think our community, they validated you as perhaps the greatest guest we've had. And we went 6 minutes over. So that's the ultimate compliment. Thanks again for you joining us today. And Ed, Larry, Gary, thank you as always. Happy listening, everyone.
We'll see you.
It's always fun,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Great.